So on the ground, when you look at what really has happened, I mean, it's a major, major defeat to the Iranians. I mean, and Trump is absolutely right about that, and also Netanyahu. There is no Air Force, there is no Navy anymore. And in the last 72 hours or so, the perception in a way changed because they managed to convey the message that the very fact that they haven't yet succumbed completely is a victory.
Okay, let's very quickly talk a little bit more about Iranian demands. They want reparations. They want to control the Strait of Hormuz. They want American bases out of the region.
But look, the negotiations, come back to your initial question. First of all, look at the mediator, Pakistan. It's interesting role they're playing here. Because they are supporting Saudi Arabia against Iran.
Welcome to FO Talks. With me is none other than Joseph Almut. He is a regular at FO Talks. As you know, he is a noted author. He's a fantastic intellectual. He has served the Israeli state in many capacities, starting from the Yom Kippur War, where he fought. He's also been a peace negotiator. So we could carry on with his bio forever, but instead we'll discuss something far more important than even Joseph Almut, which is the war between US and Israel on one side and Iran on the other side, and what has happened so far, what is going to happen next. Joseph, welcome.
Thank you so much. Always an honor.
Well, the honor is all ours. You have a huge cult following amongst our YouTube audience.
Well, some people listen.
Maybe it's only 4 or 5 or maybe 6 or 7.
I said some, you know.
They are all intelligent. They are all intelligent. In fact, I was with one of your fans a few moments ago, but we will get cracking. Joseph, it's 22 days? How many? 25? How many?
After 3 weeks, in between 3 to 4 weeks, almost a month, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we are many days into the war. What has happened? What is going on?
Again, when we talk about the war, we have to distinguish between the various parameters according to which we look at the war. So on the ground, when you look at what really has happened, I mean, it's a major, major defeat to the Iranians. I mean, and Trump is absolutely right about that, and also Netanyahu. There is no Air Force, there is no Navy anymore. By the way, the Israelis also took part in the demolition of the Navy in the Caspian Sea, as opposed to what the Americans did in the other side of Iran. There is no really...
between the Americans and the Israelis, you've sunk 120 vessels?
Even more, I think.
Okay.
But the point is that they don't have a real Navy, they don't have an Air Force, and their ground forces are immaterial at any rate, because it's not going to be a ground war. I mean, they can't invade, I mean, with their army anywhere, and at any rate, the ground army has always been insignificant to a large extent. They still have
Hang on a minute, Joseph. They did manage to survive the Iran-Iraq war. So
yeah, but that was in the 1980s. And that
absolutely,
was
80 to 88. So we can't say their ground forces are insignificant.
I would say that they're insignificant because they haven't been tried since then. And without air cover, you know. But look,
fair enough. They've not been tested since 1988.
Yeah, but the point really is, you know, about the politics of it and the perceptions of it. And in the last 72 hours or so, the perception in a way changed because they managed to convey the message that the very fact that they haven't yet succumbed completely is a victory. And as we discussed already in the past, Atul, you remember it, you have here a cultural divide. It's not just strategic, political. It's how you talk about a victory as opposed to a defeat. And Trump represents the extreme Western way of. It's very logical. They lost completely. See what they are left with: no leadership, nothing. They lost. Whereas other people will tell you the fact of the matter is that so long as they still have 100 launchers or 200 launchers as opposed to what they used to have, and they still manage to fire 10 or 15 ballistic missiles a day to Israel as opposed to the hundreds that they were supposed to do, it's a victory. So it's a question of perceptions, and what added up, and that's a new element here, to this perception is the strange Israeli performance in Lebanon. Why do I say the word strange? Because when Hezbollah broke their ceasefire with Israel, there was a sigh of relief in the Israeli leadership and military. Like, we were waiting for them to do this mistake, and we are, going big time after them, and that has not happened, not because of lack of capacity or ability, but for some political reasons that I'm not sure that I understand, maybe behind the scenes an American pressure on Israel or Arab pressure on America to put pressure on Israel, the Europeans. The fact of the matter is that the fact that Hezbollah is shooting and the Iranians are still standing up, so-called, the perception is in a way changing. The perception, okay. And then comes what I would call the Urmization of the war. Look, the Iranians were expected to do in the Hormuz Straits what they're doing. That should not be a surprise. But the war is becoming now over the Hormuz Straits. Even Trump said something yesterday about, like, I'm going to run the Hormuz Straits and so on and so forth. So the fact is that so long as the Hormuz Straits are close to many other countries, is again adding up to the perception that somehow the war is stuck, that America and Israel are not aware of going to another stage. There is no game changer.
But let's be honest. There are lots of American bases in the Gulf. America enjoys the benefit of petrodollars, which means that even if China buys Saudi oil or Iranian oil, I don't know about Iranian oil, but certainly Saudi oil, that's priced in dollars, so China has to go out and buy dollars. And those dollars are recirculated in the American economy. And so far, the Persian Gulf has been an American lake. If Iran is able to stop shipping, as it has at the Strait of Hormuz, if they can make the choke point, if they can block the choke point, then they have exported inflation globally. 20% plus of oil and gas comes from the Gulf. Over 33% or around 33% of fertilizers come from Gulf. A number of petroleum-related products come from Gulf, whether it is, well, sulfur or it is helium, and we could go on. So that means that East Asia, South Asia, Africa, everyone suffers. And everyone then questions America's ability to be the global policeman. If America cannot open the Strait of Hormuz, can tomorrow it protect Taiwan across the Taiwan Strait?
Great point. And you entered into a vacuum here because I started talking about the fact that it is a question of perception, and no one should have been surprised by what the Iranians doing in the Straits. And one wonders, therefore, about the lack of coherent response on the part of the Americans in that case. The Israelis are out of this game, And okay, so what's going to happen? Because everything you said is so right, it cannot go on for too long. And that brings it back to the so-called Trump peace maneuver again. 15 points plan, and he talks about Hormuz Straits that will be jointly controlled, whereas the Iranians say, no, we are demanding sovereignty, which, we're demanding to claim, traffic fees, so to speak, like they do in the
basically geopolitical rent.
Yeah.
That's what they want to extract.
the Iranians are making a big mistake here. Look, the power that is there is going to destroy what's left. And it's just a question of time. And that's the point here. The point really is about the political resilience, not of the Iranians, but of Trump. Trump doesn't have limitless amount of time to go on. We see it. Last night, by the way, and almost nobody talks about it, in the constituency where Mar-a-Lago is in Florida, there was a by-election to the House
And
of
the
Representatives
Democrats
in Florida,
won.
and his guy lost.
Yeah, his guy lost and lost big time. And this is a
And lost
constituency
huge
where
time by turnover of about 20%.
yes.
So that is exactly my point here. The problem really is the time factor playing with whom better, the Iranians or Trump. I still think, like I told you before when we discussed about all these American concentrations, will there be a war or not? I said, look, when you amass so much around a border of a country, it's going to be a war.
Yeah.
And the Americans are still calling more troops to the Gulf.
Exactly.
So I would say that the Iranians here are making the gamble of their regime because in the end of the day, Trump will not end the war with Iran in total control of the Hormuz Straits.
So let us talk about the peace deal or the peace negotiations. I have been reading the Israeli press, and there are huge misgivings in Israel about the negotiations apparently going on in Pakistan. So educate us, who is talking to whom? What are the forces at play? What do the three different parties want? What does Iran want? What does Israel want? What does the United States of America want? Over to
Sure,
you,
we'll
sir.
do that. Just to finish in one line what we said before, because Trump cannot allow himself to look like he lost the battle over the Straits, I believe that it is still more likely that he will go after the Iranians militarily did not.
So you're saying we are on an escalation ladder, and
We are
escalation.
on a very possible
Got
major escalation, but one that should lead to the end of this.
it.
Because
Let's
time
walk
is,
through the.
time is not playing, by the way, time is not also playing well with Netanyahu.
Yeah.
Because also in Israel, people say, okay, look, we've done this, we've done that, great, but we still are running to the shelters. So what's the end of it?
So let me stop you 1 second. So Bibi Netanyahu has been prime minister for a long time. He has survived many a political obituary. He has portrayed himself as the man who has freed the Israeli economy from the burden of the fat man in that famous interview he gave. So now the Israelis can run without a fat man on their back. Freed the economy, privatized, liberalized. And Bibi has also portrayed himself, sold himself to the public as Mr. Security. And so you're saying Donald Trump is in political hot water and Bibi Netanyahu is on slippery sands. Would that be fair?
Yeah, it is also, by the way, on very hot water because there is another story now that came about in the last 24 hours where there was a leak of recordings of statements or whatever by his acting chief of staff, who said terrible stuff about Netanyahu personally, about his wife even, imagine, and
That's an open
against...
secret, Joseph. I mean, his wife is supposedly quite fond of the good things in life and quite domineering. That's the worst kept secret in Israeli politics.
That's the best kept secret, but let's not get into that. Look, and he talked heavily stuff, I mean, terrible, ugly stuff against the Mizrahi electorate of Likud and all that, just an hour ago. So it was announced that he resigned, of course. And Netanyahu is in hot water here because it shows to you something about his reign in Israel, which is marred by not the best people around him and not the best decision making process that he's engaged in. And yet, by the way, you are absolutely right about what he did as a treasury secretary in the beginning of the century. And I will always commend him for that. tremendous achievement. It's his credit. It's his credit, I say.
Mhm.
But the fact of the matter is,
Very good. As a very dear friend of mine, Israeli friend of mine, said, excellent finance minister, terrible prime minister.
he was, well, okay. Yeah, I agree with it. I agree. But look, the negotiations, come back to your initial question. First of all, look at the mediator, Pakistan.
Mhm.
It's interesting role they're playing here
Mhm.
because they are supporting Saudi Arabia against Iran.
They have an
Sunnis,
alliance. It used to be an affair in the back room, and now it's a
it is
marriage
much
in
more than that.
the
It's
front porch.
Sunnis versus Shias.
Yeah.
And you have to see a video. I just saw video from
No, but
Pakistan today.
Joseph, it is true. It is Sunnis versus Shias, and Shias face a lot of discrimination in Pakistan. But Pakistanis are very scared of the 20% Shias who live there rebelling over Iran.
I understand. And there
And
is
you
a
saw what's
video with
happening
a
in the consulate in Karachi.
police officer saying to some Shias, "You like Iran? Go over there." It's like you're not part of us
Yeah.
because ethnicity is less important than religion in that case. But okay, and the Turks are playing a role as well, or
Mhm.
at least want you to believe that they play a role.
Yes.
And Erdogan, in a very careful way, vilifying Israel in all his idiotic stuff, but he never attacks America at the same time. So he keeps his doors open to the Americans. So that in
After all,
itself
he's a
is
NATO
always,
ally.
yeah, but that in itself is something which is viewed with suspicion by the Israelis, you can imagine. Now, the Americans
So
will
I'll
be
stop you just for a
represented.
minute. We are getting into mediators. What I would beg you to do is be a little structured and go through the different parties and the
That's why.
different
That's why I'm trying to. Yeah,
incentives.
exactly that. The Americans might be represented by J.D. Vance, vice
Mm,
president. That Trump himself said in public was not in favor of this war,
mhm.
and one that has this power political base in the MAGA movement, which parts of it don't like what's happening, to say the very least.
Yeah.
So, and we don't want Witkoff around because of his talks after the previous round of talks. That's what the Iranians are saying. Okay.
Mhm,
The Iranians,
mhm.
interestingly enough, there are three people there that apparently, according to reports, got immunity from the Israelis and the Americans. Pezeshkian,
Mhm,
I hope I pronounce the name properly,
mhm.
the chairman of the parliament, Galibaf, and Arakchi, the foreign minister.
Yeah.
Now, here is a point. You don't know, I don't know, and I don't think the Americans know whether this trio or only the chairman of parliament and Arakchi are really calling the shots. And that brings a very strong
I mean,
point
look,
to discussion
sorry
here.
to interrupt you. I mean, but Ayatollah Ali Khamenei had instituted the Mosaic strategy and the levels of force. So all the 31 provinces, you go on your own, and if you kill A, then B takes over. If you kill B, C takes over.
Yeah,
If
but
you kill C,
that's a
D takes over.
stage. That is a stage we haven't yet come to. What I'm trying to say is that the Americans
Hmm,
cannot be sure that they know
hmm,
who they're negotiating with, who
mhm,
is behind them.
mhm,
If it is true that the entire
hmm.
political leadership was eliminated
Yeah.
and the new supreme leader, where is he? Who knows,
He may very well be dead or wounded or even dead.
Or even they try to create another tradition of the hidden imam around him to give him some religious sanctity, even though he doesn't deserve it. But.
Mhm,
So here is about the Americans.
mhm.
I don't think that in the art of the deal, Trump has ever discussed the idea of negotiating with people that you don't know who they are. But the other side of it is that the Americans really still don't know who they are, but they're going to build them up.
Hmm.
And it may be a very sophisticated, maybe a very sophisticated maneuver on the part of Trump.
Hmm.
I will come to an agreement with those guys, and the other fellows, the real bad ones, will foil it. Then I'm going back big time after that. So it all is very open. And then when will they start really the negotiation? Somebody said today, you don't just start negotiating like this. I don't see any preparation in Pakistan for anything happening. So it can be arranged, within a day or so. I understand. So I look at it from an Israeli perspective now, because you ask each participant how they look at it. Netanyahu is trying to create the impression he's aware of everything. Other people say no, he was surprised by what Trump is doing, which is again an open question. 3 times already in the past, the summer and during this war, we were led to believe that Netanyahu is completely out of the picture, and we found out it wasn't the case. So again, I don't know what the answer to this is, because I'm not listening to the telephone discussions between Netanyahu and Trump. But the Israelis are very quiet about it. No condemnations from the government. What they do say is, and that they allow you to know, that they basically expect the Israeli Air Force to move on to a new stage in the attacks on Iran, to go after the sites of construction of missiles and other weapons, to prepare the ground to then say, look, we have really paralyzed them for years to come. For years to come. So that's where it stands right now. So look, it will be very difficult for the Iranians to publicize what the conditions are today, and then an agreement that in 3 or 4 or 5 days' time, Trump will say it's an American victory. You will have to see it on the ground. So therefore, I'm yet not in a position to tell you that I really give 51% for the success of these negotiations. I would give it only 49%, which to show to you I believe it's not going to succeed.
No, I mean, let's take a step back, Joseph. Scenario one, Iran folds. Hasn't happened yet for all your best efforts. Israelis have been mowing the lawn. You've killed Ali Larijani. You've killed so many of their top leadership. But the regime hasn't capitulated yet. Okay. Scenario two, you get a peace deal, which is what we are seeing right now, an attempt towards it. But there seems to be a question as to how much clout do the negotiators themselves have, J.D. Vance in the case of America, and the people showing up from Iran. Do they have any real power?
Yeah, that's what I said about the Iranians. So who they are. J.D. Vance, by the way, I would imagine will follow strictly instructions from his boss.
Got it.
I think it's more in the Iranian side.
Trump may be setting him up to fail. He may be the fall guy.
Yes. Maybe he will also send Rubio, and then you can be sure that something will happen there.
All right. And, who's negotiating for the Israelis there?
Israelis are not part of the negotiations, but they are part in a different way.
Got it.
By what they do or don't do on the ground.
Got it. So you have the veto on the ground. So
no, that I don't say. Okay. That's, again, one of those elements that complicate everything. You could argue that, but I would tell you that Netanyahu will not take the plunge of doing something that he might be afraid would compromise Trump in a big way.
Understood. So you have to keep America close.
That's why it fits into the picture of what I described before. Apparently, the guidance or instructions given by Netanyahu to the army to go after the military industries.
Understood. So
that's something the Americans.
So that brings us on to scenario three. Scenario three is unilateral declaration of victory and unilateral cessation of conflict. So America can say, Donald Trump can say, we have won. Bibi Netanyahu can say, we have won. Both of them can then turn to their voters and pretend to be war heroes, and all's good. Right?
No, because I'll tell you why. Because then Trump would have to tell them there's free shipping in Hormuz Straits. And if there are no negotiations or they fail, why would the Iranians give it to him?
So the Iranians get a vote too. The other side gets a vote, which leads me on to scenario four.
Again, I have to interrupt you. No, you see how correct it is? Because today is the 25th of the month.
Yes,
Two,
25th of
three,
March.
4 days from now, the Iranian military could almost completely collapse. Look, it's not
Mhm,
just the killings of Larijani and all the rest of them.
mhm.
It's the second generation of the killed already because the first ones was the Ayatollah, the people around him.
Yeah.
Look, the real military power of Iran was destroyed
Mm.
or about to be destroyed. And yes, last time that we talked, we gave it a week or so. It takes more time, but look. So the Iranians have the
You think
veto power.
but you're giving 3, 4, 5 days. Aren't you
That's what
being
Israel look.
optimistic?
That's what Israeli said, according to our whatever. It's obvious to you. Look, Israeli intelligence made mistakes here.
Mhm.
American intelligence made mistakes. We'll talk about this maybe later a bit, but
Yeah.
the Iranians don't have the veto power because they're still the one that is being banked on very strongly.
Okay.
And you can't be sure that by the end of the week that we are now,
Mhm.
it won't be the case that people in Tehran will say, I mean, those who are left, look, we can't go on like this.
Okay.
So.
So,
By the way, Netanyahu, if
scenario four, let me just posit to you. Scenario four is escalation, continued escalation, because it is in Israel's interest to mow the lawn and to push Iran to such a degree that the military might collapses or the military capacity collapses, and therefore Iran cannot be a threat. It is in American interest to open the Strait of Hormuz, and if that means shipping in Marines and taking over Karg Island, so be it. And it is in Iranian interest to keep going because they are making good money selling oil right now. They are
yes, yeah,
they are making
look,
money,
they're
and
making.
just hear me out. And for them, it is existential as well because they believe that the Israelis might just, whatever the peace deal is, come back and then slaughter them later anyway. So aren't we on an escalatory ladder with no way out?
No, there is a way out. Look,
Mhm.
those who say there is no way out assume that
Mhm.
there cannot be a complete defeat for the Iranians. That's the bottom line assumption here.
You're going
And
back to scenario one, which is Iran falls.
I would not say Iran falls. I would say the regime ready.
Collapses. So let's rephrase this.
Not even that. No,
Yeah,
let me remind you
yeah.
something that people may not remember.
Mhm.
How did they end up the Iraq-Iran war? Khomeini said we have to drink the glass of poison.
Yeah,
So no one will say it like that now, but they could still do it.
got
They
it.
could still do it. They want to still in power. And
Mhm.
that brings scenario one, by the way, brings it to the most significant fundamental point.
Mhm.
Was this war really based on the assumption that within a month the Iranian regime falls? If that was the assumption, it was stupid. We talked about that. It failed.
Mhm.
But if it is about let's create the condition that it will fall within 3 or 6 months, hasn't yet come to that point.
So, what you're alluding to, and correct me if I'm putting words in your mouth, is that the Israeli grand strategy is that create the conditions for the fall of the regime. Keep putting
Yeah,
pressure.
but
Keep.
yes, but before that, and
Mhm,
that's an advantage to Netanyahu, by the way.
mhm,
And before that, to destroy the military capacity of Iran to prevent it from becoming or being the number one threat for Israel's existence from a military perspective. I think the Israelis are close to that or very close to that. And Netanyahu will not be lying,
mhm,
might be exaggerating as usual, but not lying if he
mhm.
says, hey, look, what we didn't do in the summer, we finished now. Okay.
Okay. But let me ask you another question. You have friends, I have friends. Obviously, you have family there, and they are going to bomb shelters all across Israel. Attacks are regular, attacks are maybe not terribly frequent, but they are frequent enough. And the Iranians have struck two towns near the Shimon Peres Negev nuclear reactor. So they've they have hit very close to the Israeli nuclear site. Are Israelis prepared for a long war? Because Israel historically is geared for short wars, kinetic action, overwhelming superiority, quick victory. The cost on Israel is quite a bit. And B, can Israel be so confident that this could not drag out for weeks, if not months?
Well, obviously, nobody wants a long war, and you talk about the hassles of everyday life and every night, so to speak. I mean, go to
Yeah.
the shelters and all that. The attempt on Dimona, if it was an attempt on Dimona, apparently it was. It failed. If they're already firing it, they might have intended to hit it, and they failed. And overall, their attacks are sporadic now, much less than what they used to be, much more than what they used to be, I should say. And there are very important signs that they are performing much below their expectations. But yes, they still have the capacity. And yes, Netanyahu.
The argument I hear, just sorry to interrupt, the argument I hear from the Israelis is that their missile stocks are going down. They don't have very many of the Shahed high quality drones left. And eventually, Iran will be out of material to prosecute
Well,
this
that's
war.
exactly the point I tried to make before. Netanyahu can argue, and he will argue. I mean, you can be sure about that.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, the ceasefire
Yeah.
or at the agreement of whatever kind, that he achieved the goals. And I tend to believe that militarily Iran today is almost 100% less effective than what it used to be. And that brings into, therefore, the question is, okay, so why go on? So
Exactly.
let's connect the dots now.
Yeah.
If indeed Trump will bring an agreement along the lines of the 15 points with some changes, Netanyahu will accept it.
Okay, educate our listeners about 15 points because not everyone follows
Let's
the
not get
Middle
into
East
all of them,
closely.
but the main points are no nuclear program, but no nuclear program, not because there will be better monitoring. You give us the enriched uranium and so on and so on. No, the reference to the ballistic program is a bit different. You can develop them, but shorter range, so and basically the regime stays,
Understood.
lifting the sanctions and so on. So there are,
the Venezuela option.
it's a carrot and stick here. With some changes,
Yeah.
Netanyahu will accept it. That's my prediction. If Trump comes to him and tells him this is it, but in a matter of few days, not now. And in between now and then, the Israeli military effort will be much, much stronger in order to finish the job in Iran in terms of being able to say, look, no nuclear program on the ground, no ballistic missiles, no Navy, no Air Force, and so on. And at the same time, also in Lebanon. They are now talking about mobilizing 2 more divisions to send to Lebanon. So that can happen. That can happen, but that should happen in a matter of days, not weeks.
Got it. What about the Iranian bargaining position? They have put forth their own conditions.
Yes, but their main condition is let us stay. Look, why did Khomeini agree to what he agreed in 1988? Because he understood that the very existence of the regime is a problem. The regime could collapse, and he agreed to something because he wanted to save the Islamic Republic.
But at the same time, let's be honest, Saddam Hussein was expected to prevail, and Saddam had all the advantages. And Iran.
That's exactly the point. That's why the Iranians felt that we need to stop at this point.
Yeah,
and
but
still
Iranians managed to last 8 years. That's my point.
Yeah, but it's a different type of war, as you know, and it wasn't against America and Israel. It was against the Iraqis, and with 50% of the population of Iraq, or 55% are Shiites themselves, and it was a ground warfare mostly. This is not a ground war, It's a totally different type of war. But look, I personally feel that it is now more a question of the time factor, not between three factors. Netanyahu is a little bit out of this game, even though he has a time factor problem. It's Trump and the Iranians. And it is a real question as to the resilience of Trump here.
But you also have counterparty risk, as you yourself said, with Iran. You don't know who you're talking to.
Sure, the Americans have this problem, as I said, of course. They know if Arakchi will be there, they talk to Arakchi, but anyone really believe that he makes any decisions? I mean, he's the mouthpiece, Or Pezeshkian. The other guy, we don't really know what he thinks.
Yeah.
And by the way,
Now,
remember something here, very interesting. As much as we like to criticize Trump for being whimsical and zigzagging and all that, he never said that the heir apparent is Reza Pahlavi.
that's
He was
true.
very consistent in keeping the door open.
Yeah, I
So
mean, in fact, he's always been quite dismissive of Reza Pahlavi.
even disrespectful to him, not even disrespectful. And he said yesterday something that aroused some laughter, but think about it. He said there's already been a regime change. It's a new leadership there. Well,
Yeah,
all
but
dead.
okay, let's very quickly talk a little bit more about Iranian demands. They want reparations. They want to control the Strait of Hormuz. They want American bases out of the region. So these demands are pretty.
They're not going to be met. They want to stay in power.
Okay. So you think these are just bargaining chips? This is posture?
Maybe not, but in that case, they are taking the risk that, look, the wolf syndrome. You threaten, but in the end, things happen. Look, they can't really resist American military power if it is inflicted in full force against them. And let me tell you something, by an impression.
But that's an if you put.
Well, why do they call more troops, the Americans, to the region? They have enough troops to inflict this. They really call more troops because they want to lessen their risks also, as you said before, more casualties and all that. Look, the Iranians here have to make the decision, and Trump, of course. In the case of Trump, okay, we know what are the pressures on him. In the case of the Iranians, and that comes back to Khomeini, I mean, who really is the authority that those guys would listen to? Because if there is no Mujtaba, whatever his name or is, incapacitated, this guy make a decision. And therefore, it comes to the question that we started with. Do they really have the power to make the decision? But if they have the power to make the decision, my bet is they might make a decision that will allow some kind of movement.
All right. Joseph.
They want to stay. Look, Atul, they want to stay in power. And then they will say, look, we stayed in power. And everybody will say America and Israel betrayed Pahlavi or betrayed the opposition in Iran. Nobody betrayed them. Nobody betrayed them.
Your argument, the crux of it is the Iranian regime may be mad, but it's not suicidal.
They may be different, not even mad. It's one thing that I always say to my students. When you look at the Middle East, and you might say, the question I was asked by students is, look, we have Episcopalians, Baptists, Methodists, this and that, and we don't fight each other. Why do they do it in the Middle East? So I explain, and then I tell them the bottom line is, it's not about they are better or you are better, they are worse or you are worse. It's the difference. If the Iranian regime survives this situation, and there is a sense of betrayal by the Iranian opposition, they might say we won. And who would say no to them?
So survival is victory.
They care about their own people,
Yeah.
But
survival
by the way,
is victory.
in the counter-revolutionary guard, there are defections and all that. So, look, and that brings me to Trump. Okay, about Trump, I don't know what example is the way he reads the situation last night in his own backyard when his guy failed in elections. What exactly people say to him now? Look what is going to happen. That is difficult to say, but I do not see, in order not to look like this way or that way, I do not see Trump just finishing everything without showing something very tangible that the Iranians conceded, that he can say, look, that's a big victory.
Understood. Joseph Almut, always great talking to you. We
And
will
talking to you, Atul.
we will follow this war. We will have many conversations, and we shall see what transpires over the next few days.
Will do. Thank you so much.
And those of you who've been watching us, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, press the bell icon, then you will get notifications when we upload new videos. And make sure you go to our website, fairobserver.com, sign up for our free newsletters, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.
See you soon. Take care.
Join the conversation at Fair Observer and subscribe to our YouTube channel.